What's going on, everyone? So in this video, I want to talk all about why squatting every day can be a good way to build muscle. However, we have to tweak it because a lot of times when we hear squat every day, these programs, which I'm currently in day 42, is really about working up to daily maxes. So we look at high intensity in terms of we're lifting above 90% of your 1 rep max daily, if not multiple times per day, whether in the back squat or the front squat. But it's also low in volume, and it's kind of low in that progressive overloading that we look at a more traditional hypertrophy or strength program. So there's some things that I want to discuss about why maxing out all the time, especially on a program like this, is probably not the most effective way to build new muscle tissue when we talk about muscle hypertrophy, and how we can use the squat everyday program to either cap off a really great hypertrophy cycle to kind of express that new strength and then recycle back into more of a more traditional hypertrophy program when we're talking about leg growth and size. But then also, if you are doing the squat every day, like myself, and I've now been running it for about 6 or 7 weeks, is how can I start to incorporate and transitioning where I'm still squatting every day. I have the goal of obviously getting stronger and pushing that maximal strength expression to where I'm trying to just increase and hit 90% or plus more and more every single day for weeks and months on end. But what can I do within the training sessions to deliver more volume to my body so that I'm not losing muscle mass? Because there's a lot of people think when they get stronger in terms of the number on the bar that they're gaining more muscle, and that's not always the case. A lot of times when we come out of a hypertrophy phase is you gain muscle, right? We talk about gaining size, gaining muscle volume, and then we go into a strength phase where we teach that new muscle how to express its force and be more coordinated in that expression of force. And then we, that's more traditionals like 2s, 3s, doing more, percentage work here and there. And then we can go into like a peaking phase, which is kind of what squatting every day would be. We're squatting to a max. We're trying to then take this new muscle that we taught it how to then express force to then be able to tap into the neural side of it and really just step under a bar, understand how to move maximal weights with good technique, because there is something to be said about that. And in other videos, I'll talk about the benefits of squatting every day, which I've noticed a benefit in that. But that's what I want to talk about today. So the first part, and I want to get this clear, is that maxing out, meaning hitting heavy singles every day, is most likely to, I'll maybe just say, definitely not the most effective way to grow new muscle tissue. And we have to remember that when we train, there are certain qualities that we try to bring out. So if we're maxing out all the time, the reason that it's not necessarily the best for muscle hypertrophy, which is gaining muscle size, if you want to get bigger legs, you want to look bigger and have that aesthetic appeal, but also in a certain phase where even if you are a strength athlete, you need to go through these hypertrophy phases so that you can build more muscle, you can put more horsepower in your tank, so that down the road we can teach you how to use that horsepower, and that's your more strength and your peaking blocks. So if you've never done a hypertrophy program and you're trying to squat every day in terms of, when I say squat every day, because you can squat every day and do volume, but when I'm talking about that, it's more the traditional squat every day, work up the heavy singles and kind of maxing out, is that you're just not going to accumulate enough volume to be able to have the strength to fatigue ratios you're looking for. Because when we're hitting high intensities, meaning percentage of our 1 rep maxes, you can only do that so much before you just either get injured or you just burn out, or your body just it just can't get as much work done as it needs to have that muscular fatigue and muscular adaptations. So there's a couple ways that we can adapt the program, and I've kind of been playing with mine where it's not necessarily maxing out squatting every day. I'm still squatting every day, but I'm, maybe some days are easier and I'm getting more volume, and so I can kind of keep the intensity high on some days so I can keep my nervous system primed. But then also on other days where I don't have that, I can just get more volume based. So that's something to think about. When we talk about the maxing out every day, it's very stressful on the nervous system. I will say a benefit of this is that you just kind of become a little bit numb to it. But that is still something to be aware of. And when hypertrophy is the goal, meaning, if you're working out because you're trying to get bigger legs or just bigger in general, the more volume you can put in, 9 times out of 10, it's going to be more advantageous to you to be able to grow muscle size. because there's an inverse relationship between volume in terms of sets and reps per muscle group per week, and intensity, meaning how heavy you're lifting relative to your max. So if you're lifting above 90%, you probably can't do as many reps as if you were doing 70%. So that's something to be aware of, and you have to understand that balance and where you're at in your training cycle. So the biggest thing I also have noticed with this, when people are asking me, is this a way to start building new muscle, is that they'll see the numbers in the bar start to go up, right? So maybe last week you hit a 315 back squat, then the next week you get 315, 320. So you're having this just trend of just a linear increase in your expression of your top end strength. But that doesn't necessarily mean, again, that you're gaining muscle as optimally as you may think, even though the number of the bar is going up, because those two are not always indicative of one another, because there's other factors. When we talk about maxing out for a single rep, there's a lot of skill with, like, how is your skill when you are lifting with 90% weight? Because if it's an 80% weight, you could probably get away with grinding out a rep with the bar maybe forward and you can still save it. Versus 90%, you're going to get buckled. So just having that understanding that the top end number doesn't always necessarily mean, if it's going up, that you're gaining muscle. You just might be getting really good at expressing your strength with your existing muscle. Versus if we were doing like 8s and 10s and you were getting better with 8s and 10s, well, now we're in a rep range where you could probably lead to believe that you're probably, yes, you're getting better at expressing a little bit more strength, but like when we're dealing with 8s, 10s, 6s, and you're having progress there, you're probably more in that ability of you're actually gaining muscle mass. And then you can take that new muscle mass down the road and you can enter into a program where you're not so concerned with like putting the pedal to the metal on just gaining as much muscle as possible, and just learning to take that muscle that you now have and expressing it as strength. Because outside of being a beginner, more intermediate and advanced lifters, you can't just train to gain maximal amounts of muscle and maximal amounts of strength at one time. There has to be some sort of periodization to your programming. So I want to then offer ways that I've been doing this, and if you're somebody who's hellbound on squatting every day, or you like the idea, which I do, I'm a big, personally right now, it fits my training lifestyle and where I'm at with things, and it's great because it allows me to put a lot of effort into my squat, which is what I like. I have to have that for my Olympic weightlifting because that's kind of my biggest issue. So some things that I've been doing to just build more volume, and this has been kind of the first 4 weeks, I just kind of got acclimated to it. I didn't do a lot of this. I just wanted to let my body adjust to squatting that frequently. Now I'm in the next 4 weeks and I've started to do this, and I'm starting to kind of see where I can maybe put a little more in the next 4 weeks. So number one, take more time to warm up. So I've been doing a lot more, like I typically start my sessions 3 sets with just the empty bar of 10. Just getting the legs. Now that's not that necessarily heavy, right? When we took it like muscle hypertrophy, it can't just be too light, right? Because we have to typically, be above that 30-40% at least. And in a 10 rep range, when we look at muscle hypertrophy, we're looking to just get that muscle going. So we probably, if we're doing like 10s at like 50 to 65%, that could probably help us out there. But regardless, getting more warm-ups, it's going to help us just pattern better movement patterns. So you're going to get grease in the groove more. You're just going to accumulate over the course of months or weeks of doing this. You're going to accumulate a bunch of volume and get your legs conditioned, and you'll just be able to do that. So I will do 3 sets of 45 pounds just with a bar of 10. Then I'll throw on a plate. I get like 8 to 10. I'll throw on another plate. I get like 5. So and then once I get to about 70% or so, or 75, after I've hit like, 2s and 3s at 60, 70, and maybe like 75, once I get to 80%, I'm just going singles at that point. And that would kind of be that. If there's days that I hit really high intensities, that objective was met, and then I just don't do a lot of back off volume. But there's some days I walk in and I don't necessarily hit high intensity. Maybe I only hit 91%, and the day before I hit 96%. Right, 96%, I'm happy with that, 97, or maybe a PR. The other days that I just don't feel as strong, I kind of hit my minimum, which I'll talk about in other videos, how to like set that. I'll do back off sets after that, and that's my second one here, is adding back off sets. So right now I'm doing about 8 to 10 back off sets a week. So typically I'll do back off sets on front squats 1 to 2 days of the week, and then back off set of back squats just 1 day a week. And typically it's anywhere between 3 and 4 sets per session of that. So I'll work up to my single, and then I'll take 10-15% off, and I'll do back off sets in like the 2 to 3 rep range, or maybe even 3 to 5. None of those are really like super grindy. I'm always leaving one in the tank, and I'm really just working on getting the leg volume, getting that stimulus. It is still working to kind of build strength, but also be able to kind of build muscle, or at least put a little more effort into that. So that's kind of the second one here, is you can do that. And that really depends on, like, less is more with that. So you don't want to just go do leg finishers. You don't want to like blow your legs up with leg presses, because this is not a program where you will murder your legs and then not be able to walk. Like, you're squatting every day. So if, instead of doing 20 sets in the gym on one leg day a week, we're doing 3 sets or 4 sets 6 to 7 days a week, right? And because we're doing less per day, typically you can have higher quality work, but it comes with the understanding that if you feel amazing and you want to just murder your legs and you get a sick leg pump, this isn't the program for that. You have to stick with it for the long term, understand that a little bit each day of high quality work is going to get you to that spot. So that's kind of where that's at. The next thing I want to look up here is whenever you're doing this, and understand, I make it sound like, yes, you could build muscle on this. I'm doing this because I'm not so concerned with maximum muscle gain right now. Because if you're somebody who just wants to gain bigger legs and bigger size, this might not be the most effective program for you. But if you're somebody who's done programs like that, you've had good growth like I have, and I'll share what I'm doing, then maybe you can look at this program as like a temporary or an acute, 6, 8, 12, 16 weeks, whatever, of learning to take your new muscle and transition it into strength so that you can increase your numbers, you can get used to lifting heavier loads, so now when you go back to another hypertrophy block, you're handling heavier loads. So if you're doing 8s at 225, and then you go through a whole 24-week period, and now you max out 15 pounds or 20 pounds or 30 pounds heavier, when you go back and do an 8s, now you're gonna be doing 8s at like 245, 250. And that's how that progress of up and down goes. So prior to this, I ran, and this is what I recommend people who are thinking about doing this, is make sure you run a solid like 12, 16, 20 week hypertrophy / strength progress program. And that's what I did. So if you guys want to check it out, it's the Look Like You Lift program. I actually have 2 options. I have a 15 week and a 20 week. It has some Olympic weightlifting in there, because I know you guys watch the channel also for Olympic weightlifting. And that's what I run myself through. I've ran my lifters. I just had a lifter transition into this type of programming to prep for his meet, where he qualified yesterday for U.S. National Championships in July. But we did a lot. I mean, like 15 to 20 sets of like leg training, or like more like 15 sets of quad specific work, 12 to 15 sets of hamstring work to kind of start the phases, and we added sets here and there throughout. A lot of high volume with a lot of assistance work, a lot of high volume and rep work with upper body, as well as also having all of our Olympic weightlifting stuff. So then what happens is we do that, we build up our work capacity, build up our ability to just take a lot of variables in our training and fill a lot of holes and gaps with a lot of different movements, a lot of correctives, because when you go to something like this, you get very specific where you're just squatting. So we're just doing back squats, front squats. I'm not doing a lot of like unilateral. I'm not doing a lot of supportive exercises. So that's the key, is to set a strong foundation so that your body is ready for something like this. And again, you guys can check that out. The links are down below. Look Like You Lift. You can Google it to learn more. Look Like You Lift 1.0 is a 20 week. I would say that's a little longer of a program. It has kind of a peaking block to it. And then I just ran my Look Like You Lift 2.0, which is a 15 week, which didn't have a peaking block, which this is kind of what this is for me. So if you kind of want to do something like this, maybe check out that 15 week or the 20 week. They're both great, and I've done both, and I've had a lot of people do them with very similar results. There's just 2 different timelines there. So I hope this video was at least on a topical level, and kind of dove down the weeds here, helpful for you if you are seeing and you love the concept of squatting every day, but you're somebody who wants to just build a shit ton of muscle. And I understand that if you're a beginner and you're doing anything, you're going to have progress. But if you're more intermediate or advanced, you've done different programs, you can do something like this in the short term, especially if you've done a lot of the more traditional hypertrophy work, and you're probably going to get pretty good results of just learning how to lift heavier, expressing your strength, increasing your PRs, because then after that you can go back to a more traditional like hypertrophy based program and you'll be handling heavier weights. So that's kind of what I suggest. If you have not ever done that or you're here and you're wanting to do something like this and you have not done a hypertrophy program right now or prior to this, I suggest you at least condition yourself for like 6 to 8 weeks. I personally think like a great muscle growth period is like 12 to 16 weeks where you're eating, you're gaining mass, and that's something that again is in the links there. You can check that out. But those are kind of my big takeaways here that I want to just stress with you guys is maxing out is not the most effective way to build muscle. However, it could be a component used acutely throughout your training protocol or your programming to do so. So if you guys have any questions, hit the question comments below and I'll get through those. But I hope you guys like these videos. Again, I'm actually about to go off to squat this afternoon. So just stay tuned. I am in my week 6 or 7, I believe, day 42. So yeah, make sure you guys subscribe to this channel. Check out those links. Comments below if you have any questions. I'll see you.